Welcome back for part 2 of the repair to the Ramsey Com3 communication service monitor. Since the last video, I've gone ahead and detached the circuit board from the front panel. Here's the front panel with the flexes and the BNC connections in place. And here is the circuit board with the 7-segment displays, including the one that's malfunctioning, and the dirty controls. And what we did on the back, they bring a wire up from the circuit board and they loop it around the terminal on the BNC. So I use my soldering iron and my pick to heat the terminal, and then use the pick to bring the wire up and off the top of the terminal. That worked for these three. On the RCA connection for the receiver, you have to unsolder the resistor to get to the center pin of the BNC, unsolder that, and then also you have to unsolder the ground tab on the BNC, and that gets that apart. So I've checked the schematic, and the 7-segment display that's faulty is a red common anode. And I just happen to have a tray of common anodes here, part of a big bunch of stuff that I got from a local technical college when it closed down. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and, there we go, install this unit, and we'll see if it sits flat enough. There we go. It is sitting flat against the socket, and it's level with all of the others. So we'll test it shortly and see if that goes ahead and lights up. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and spray some contact cleaner into these potentiometers, and then exercise the potentiometer to see if we can get them cleaned up and freed up enough that they are not noisy anymore. That should help us out quite a bit. A little goes a long way. It evaporates pretty quickly, but it does the job pretty well in my experience so far. Just want to spray it in there and then work the control back and forth while it evaporates. That cleans the contact surfaces and gets them back to making good solid contact. Alright, so I think at this point we could go ahead and solder things back together here. If this doesn't fix it, the components that I need to get to are on the back of the board, and I can do further testing. And it's fairly easy to take this apart if I have to, so that's not a huge issue. I'll go ahead and lay that there. I'm going to straighten that so that it's easier to get it through the hole that it goes into here. And let's see here. See if we can get everything to fit back together correctly. It's looking close. Something's a little off. Let's see if it's... yeah, that's what it was. Potentiometers weren't seated all the way. So that's in. Very good. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way and grab some of the screws that hold everything together. We'll go ahead and put a couple of screws in it just to stabilize things, and then work from there. This one, the second one in the opposing corner. Very good. Alright, so we will go ahead and get our soldering materials down. Put that cleaner out of the way. It's not a Heiko soldering station, but it'll get the job done. Alright, so first thing we need to do is see if we can work these coils back down onto their respective B and C terminals. Very good. One thing we need to do is, this may have to be heated to go back on there. Let's go ahead and get some of this put back together before we go too much further. That'll further stabilize things for us. I'll get out the driver and tighten them down the rest of the way shortly. I always try to start by hand on tightening these down, just to make sure I don't cross thread them. The other thing that I find works really well is if it's a threaded fastener, turn it backwards and you can feel it click into place, and a lot of times that gets you aligned where you need to be, so that you can go ahead and get the rest of the assembly done without cross-threading. I very rarely cross-thread fasteners anymore. It also helps to have the correct tools. Let's go ahead and turn all those controls down. Very good. Alright. Heated up, so, and of course I dropped it. There we go. So we'll go ahead and heat this up and see if we can get it back into place. Oh, there we go. That's seated. We'll get our solder. If we can find the end. There we are. And we will just heat this terminal up and flow some solder into it. Very good. That one's already seated, so we're good there. As is this one. It actually just seated a little bit further down. Alright, those are the easy ones. And then we need to solder this one. So we'll bring this ground terminal down. And we'll apply some heat and some pressure to see if we can get it to sit a little flatter. Oh, very good. That went right together. No problems. And then we're going to heat up the center pin. There we go. That just flowed over. Wonderful. And then we will reattach this resistor. Now there are two diodes here, We want to make sure we don't apply too much heat because we don't want to damage the junctions. I'm going to attempt to be fairly careful here. Get a nice flow out. Put some pressure on the resistor so it doesn't go cold on us. There we go. And we're back together. All right. We'll go ahead and reattach our flexes into their sockets. I'll have to bring that connector back up. It's gotten pushed back down. There we go. Just want to make sure that your flex is seated correctly and push it back together. We'll double check this one as well. Yeah, that one should be good. Okay, and then we want to check for any damage. I can see a transistor here that's gotten somewhat flattened over. Looking at the schematic, one thing that I did notice is that they have used 2N3906 and 2N3904 quite a bit inside of this service monitor. So if I needed to, it should be fairly easy to replace transistors. Alright, so now we need to put these back in place. Without bending the pins that are attached. Sometimes that can be the biggest challenge. This may actually go this way. Let's double check, make sure that we haven't done that wrong. Okay. We'll do this side, make sure everything's lined up. You don't want to be off by one. If you are off by one, then that could be a big problem. You start crossing grounds and grounds and supply rails, and the next thing you know, you've blown power supplies. So that's not good. Also, the issue on the main board that we had. Bring that over. With the can that I had cut the top off of to get that loose screw out of there, get it seated back into the standoff that it goes into. This is actually the receive side, and I think that what we're going to do to check it is we'll hook up my other communication service monitor, my CT Systems 2100 or WaveTech 2100, and generate into it and see if we get what we think we're supposed to have. The other thing I might do, it goes from, this is the first IF amplifier and one of the bandpass filters. It goes from this mixer into the bandpass filter, through a UHF amplifier, and then into the second mixer. So we'll just do some checks and see if we're getting amplification across this UHF transistor, and if we are, I think we can assume that that it's actually working. So we'll be doing that after we get things back together and tested. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video at this point so that I can get things back together, and once I have things together, we'll do some testing. So I'll be back shortly. Alright, we're back. I've got the main board back into the unit. Front panel is reattached, and everything's been soldered back together. I've reconnected the interconnects between all the boards So we should be ready to power on. Let's just make sure that everything's bottomed out connection-wise here. And we'll go ahead and plug in. And hopefully nothing lets the smoke out. Okay, we have no power. We just have no power, or do we have no display? Alright, let me check to make sure that I haven't cross-wired something here. Okay, nothing. Wow, that is not good. Alright, I'm going to pause the video and see if I can figure out what's going on. I'll be right back. Well, that was an interesting couple of minutes. One of the power connectors coming in from the main feed to the main board was a little bit loose, and after I reseated it, everything went back to working. We still have a little bit of a dirty control there. I'll probably have to replace that pod at some point. So if we raise our modulation, deviation, we can see that the controls are a lot better. So that's good news. I'm going to go ahead and change batteries on my camera and cable up my test setup so we can see how well this unit receives, and I will be back in just a moment. Alright, we're back again. The service monitor seems to be receiving, so looks like we're good there. What I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the antenna and cable up to my other service monitor. So I'm going to hook to the RF out with a T and a 50 ohm terminator, and I'll connect to the RF in here. And I'll set for monitor FM. Let's go ahead and set for a frequency that is not being used. Okay, 146.55. So let's see if we can get our other service monitor to generate where I want it to. I'll turn that off. Aha! So let's reduce our RF level all the way to the bottom. Alright, so we are receiving. To get it to full quieting, I have to go quite high, so we may be having an issue with the receiver on this unit. Let me see here. Let me pause the video and get a closer look at my other service monitor to figure out where we're at. Alright, back again. So we are at 0.6 millivolts is what our WaveTech 2100 is generating to get full quieting on this frequency. So I think that we should probably be a little bit lower than that, so I will need to do some further troubleshooting. But for now, we do have the monitor in better shape than it was in. Let's try reversing the setup and see what level we need to generate into the WaveTech to get where we want to be. Let's go ahead. Set for generate. We'll drop our level, connect our signal gen out, turn up our volume there, and raise our output level. See, here, let's see, 3 microvolts. And for full quieting, 14 microvolts. So the WaveTech 2100 is quite a bit more sensitive than the Ramsey Com3. So I will need to check the specifications and see how far off we are. The transistor that's in here, I don't remember the 2SC designation. I know it's an NTE 107, which is no longer available. But there are some compatible transistors that I should be able to get. Maybe I can order one from Mauser or pick one up at Fry's next week. So we'll probably do an update video on this, but I think for now we are probably at the point where we need to be on this. So that's going to be the last video on this until we do an update. And I hope you've found this informative, and if you've enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit like, and share and subscribe. Have a great day.